Good morning. I'm Tanisha McCall from Miami, Florida. Been here, born and raised, been here all my life. And I spend most of my time in service. I've been serving the youth of South Florida for over 15 years. It's a passion of mine, and I just like helping people, serving people in any way possible. And this morning, I'm here to serve with my story.
Good morning. My name is Larry McCall. I'm a 68-year-old male, and I was born in Eufaula, Alabama. And I was raised by my maternal grandmother. And I'm in ministry. I've been in ministry now for over 20 years. And even as my daughter just said, I love helping people. I have a passion for serving. Because there was a breakdown in the father-daughter relationship.
Tell us about that.
Well, number one, I had kids at an early age, and I never had a model. My father wasn't in my life, and I was raised by my grandmother. And the way that I was raised in a way that I was not allowed to express myself. And because I wasn't allowed to express myself, I didn't allow them to express themselves.
The change happened. Well, growing up when I was younger, I was a daddy's girl. Like I always wanted to be wherever my father was. I wanted to be with him. I wanted to be in his presence. But as I got older, the relationship shifted because my dad he had a drug addiction. He was addicted to drugs, and it was rocky for us. We moved around a lot. There wasn't a lot of consistency in the home. Um, there was always arguing and yelling, and it was it was hard. It was hard, and then when my dad got off drugs, it's like he just came back in the house like full force. There was no um, there was no conversation. It was more so, I'm the dad. You do what I say, when I say, how I say do it. And we didn't have freedom to express ourselves. My father he was very strict, and there was no there was no affection in the home. There was no emotion, and we just always felt like whenever my dad was around, we needed to basically be invisible or do what he said. So we had a unhealthy fear of my father growing up. But me being a person that I am, I always wanted to, like, give my dad a chance, give him an opportunity. But um I didn't speak to my father for a year or maybe longer. And what happened was, I um I was I was engaged to get married, and the the wedding got called off. And I felt like my dad should have been there for me, and my dad wasn't there for me in the way I needed him to show up. I felt like his focus was more so on like the money, because maybe a couple of days after I told him the wedding got called off, he called and asked me about the money that was spent for the wedding. And that it felt like insult to injury. I was already in a low place. I just wanted my dad to be there for me. And instead of him just being there for me, he asked about the money that was spent for the wedding. So I just told myself, I'll make sure he get the money, but I don't want nothing else to do with him. And that's what it was. I didn't talk to him for a year. Every time he called, I sent him straight to voicemail because I just wanted nothing. I felt like that was an opportunity for him to show up and be a dad, and he wasn't a dad.
Well, previously, what I said earlier, it had to do with me not having a father. Uh, my grandmother took me at the age of 6 months, and my mother nor my father was ever in my life as a kid coming up. So I come to realize some years later that I had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment, and that was perpetrated on my kids. I realize that today. And one of the reasons that I wasn't there because I was always told what to do. And I also perpetrated that on my kids as well. They had to do what I said do. There was nothing else. But I didn't show up as a father because it was all about me, not recognizing the importance of being there for my kids. Because of my own personal issues, my drug addiction, it caused me to disconnect, as she said earlier. And it was difficult for me. But I learned the pain that I caused them. If I could do it all over again, I would. But I thank God for the opportunity that He have given us to reconnect. We cannot go back to the past and change anything. But moving forward, daughter, I want you to know that I'm here now and I can show up for you anytime you need me to show up for you.
Well, in order for me to just get in a space where I could allow my father back in my life, I had to see my dad as a person. Like I had to strip him of the title of dad and just see him as a man. And when I began to understand my father's background, I had compassion for him. My father was abandoned by both his parents. He he was given to his grandmother by his mother to be raised in a whole nother state, and then his father lived, if I recall correctly, maybe a block or two or like on the next street, really in close proximity to him, and didn't take up time with him, didn't come see him. I can only like I know the pain that I feel having my father present but absent, but to have two parents that were absent, I can only imagine the hurt that he feels, the 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 ache in his heart. So I had to have compassion for my father, feel his pain, and see him as a person. My father was hurting. While it's no excuse, if you want to move forward and mend the relationship, sometimes you have to look at it from another pair of glasses. You got to see things through a different lens if you want to move forward. And for me, my heart is always in forward progress. When somebody offends me, I want to forgive them and I want to move forward. And also, I'm a Christian. You know, I have my dad to thank, not for me being a Christian, but for introducing me to Christ. And for, you know, if my dad didn't do anything right, he might have gotten a lot of things wrong. But my dad made sure we went to church. Not only did we go to church, my dad made sure we understood the importance of reading our Bible, understanding who God was for ourselves. So for me, it came down to, if I want God to be forgive me of my sins, like I am not perfect, I am an imperfect human being. I make mistakes all the time, I make bad decisions all the time. If I'm going to go to God and say, God, forgive me, how can I not extend that same love and grace to my own father? In my mind, it just didn't make sense. And while, you know, I was hurt, I am still hurt. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm fully healed. I am still hurting. This is a healing journey. It it didn't come overnight for me. You know, some moments my dad may call me and I might not answer the phone. But you know, my dad is persistent. You know, he gonna keep calling me until I pick up the phone. So to your point, how I got here was I just saw my dad as a human. I saw him. I didn't look at him as my father. I saw him as a man that was hurt, who was ill equipped, and he just didn't know how to do the job, and it didn't have anything to do with me. Um, he just didn't have the tools. So I made a choice to forgive my father and to move forward.
Well, I have positive role models in my life. I have Christian brothers in my life that was a good example for me. And watching them interact with their children, and it gave me a sense of what a father was supposed to be. In the book of Ephesians 6 and 4 tells the father how to raise his children. And one of the things that it says that the father is not to provoke their kids to anger. And my very discipline as a father caused my children to be angry. Not that I didn't love them, but I wasn't capable of giving them the love that they needed in those formative years. And my pastor, he's a very good role model for me. He has kids, and I watched them over the years. So I've learned how to be a father, and I hear the pain that's in her heart today. But again, I thank God for the opportunity to start this journey where we can completely heal. And I thank God for my daughter being honest about her true feelings as a father. But as she said, I could only give them what I had. And being raised in Alabama back then, uh, you just got told what to do. As I said earlier, uh, I was not allowed to express myself, and that that did a lot to me. That caused me to not be able to give them what they needed.
Be willing to have the hard conversation. Um, don't make any excuses. Validate your daughter's feelings. Acknowledge the hurt and the pain that you caused, and show up. Show up. Um, every girl wants their father. 2 to 92. We all want to know that our fathers love us, that we belong here, and that they will protect us. And we get all of that from a father. So while your daughter may be grown, trust she still needs you. She still wants you. Some days I just want my dad. I'm almost 40 years old, and some days I just want my dad. So show up, be present, have the hard conversations, be willing to forgive. Forgive your daughter for the things she may say to you out of anger, out of hurt. Forgive yourself for not being there. Most of all, just show up, and don't show up to father your daughter as you would an infant child. You have to realize if your daughter is an adult, that's an adult. So show up in the way of service and simply ask, you know, I apologize. I wasn't there for you when you were growing up. I did abandon you, but I'm here now, and how can I be a dad to you now? How can I be a dad to you at this stage in your life? What do you need from me? And know that it will be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It may take a month, it may take a year, but don't give up. Remember, you have to rebuild that trust, and rebuilding that trust takes time. And know that at some moments be you and your daughter may be doing okay, and then some days you might not, because something can trigger her. So healing is a journey. It takes time, but show up. If you show up and you continue to be persistent and you have humility and you don't make excuses, it can happen. The connection can happen. The rebuilding can begin.
First of all, a father must become a good listener. He must respect his kids' feelings. And I believe that forgiveness is key. We must be willing to forgive and work on the relationship. And I believe by faith that the Word of God said that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We have to be willing to bridge the gap. And we have to take ownership, even as she said earlier. We have to take ownership of the hurt that we caused as a father and be willing to give them time to reconnect. Today, I hear your pain. I thank God for this second opportunity that we have to actually mend our relationship from a father to a daughter. And that's the advice that I would give to a father. Learn to respect, own it. You messed it up, own it. And respect them. And let them share with you their true feelings. And be able to accept that and learn from it and move forward.
Absolutely, I would say that it is affecting my relationship with men as an adult. Um, it just depends. To be honest, it just depends on what day of the week or what month it is, in terms of how the effects manifest themselves. So, by me not having a good relationship with my father, sometimes, I'm very guarded. I put up a wall. It's hard for me to trust people because if my own father couldn't be trusted, why should I trust you? Um, it also manifests itself in anxiety and depression that I suffer with every single day. It's a battle for me. Um, I, Most of the time, I don't even feel like I belong because I just didn't get that validation growing up. So even though I'm on this healing journey, it's it's still a process for me. That knowing that I belong, like I deserve to be here, I deserve to take up space. But I just didn't have that growing up. I wasn't validated in my house, you know. Like my dad said, he just basically barked orders at us. You do this, you do what I say, you can't feel. So I didn't even know really how to think. I, I didn't have enough experience with feelings to even have feelings. So, as a result of that, I've been told by, some of my partners that I'm not affectionate. I'm emotionless. I'm stoic. And it's not that I don't have those emotions. It's just that I've never been allowed to express them. So it has affected my life, but I'm on a healing journey. I'm getting better, but it still affects my life to this day. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to just still have my father here, so that we can start to mend or continue to mend our relationship.
There's so many things that I could brag about, and I'm proud to have her for a daughter. In spite of all the things that she's gone through, and sitting here listening to her inner feelings in reference to me being present but not present. And yet, she's turned out to be an amazing young lady. She's one of the first graduates in the family, and she has so many skills that God has blessed her with. But what I'm most proud, what I brag about, is that my daughter, in her unselfishness, was willing to give life. That's what I brag about more than anything.
What I brag about when I talk about my dad is my dad is cool. My dad is one cool, one cool dude. uh, his charisma, uh, his personality, his persistence. But lately, the bragging has really been just amongst my siblings. I can recall a time when we would get on the phone and we would always talk about how we can't stand that. Like, he get on our nerves. He makes us sick. And then the other day, just yesterday, I was talking to my brother and we were talking about my dad, but we were kind of mocking him a little bit, saying like how every time we call him, he always gonna say, every time we ask him like, Dad, what you doing? He always gonna say, I'm about to go to service. He always gonna say that, But it was more so when we hung up the phone, it wasn't the anger that's usually there. My my brother was like, I love Dad. I was like, I love Dad too. So now when we talk about my father now, we see the change in my father. We brag about how he's been intentional in showing up for us. Um, I was talking to my sister the other day. She called me, and she was having a situation, and she said to me, Dad came over, and he saved the day. He he was my hero. So that makes me smile. It it's like a weight is being lifted off of my life. I feel lighter walking through life in this phase because I'm mending my relationship with my dad. So what I can say that I'm proud of my father is because he had the courage to have the hard conversation. He didn't run. He didn't try to hide. He didn't dismiss. But he's here today. I asked him to come, and it was never, I'll think about it. It was an automatic yes. So, what I'm most proud of with my father is that he had the courage to show up. He has the courage to continue to do the work. And that not only is he doing the work for himself, he's telling his story in hopes of really helping other fathers to start their journey. I would love to sit up here and say it was some deep epiphany I had, but it wasn't. It was something so simple as every year Father's Day come around, and we take the social media and we post these pictures on Facebook. And last year actually, um, I was doing my Father's Day post, and I was just typing Happy Father's Day. And I before I hit the post button, I looked at the picture of my father and myself, and I just saw us smiling, and I thought to myself, how many people see this photo of me and my father smiling, and they think to themselves, I wish I had that type of relationship with my dad. But they don't know the story behind the smile. They don't understand that it was a process. It took time. Like, this didn't happen overnight. We live in a generation where everything is so unauthentic. Everything is Photoshop. It is just not real. And I just want it to be real. Um, I want it to be real, to let people know, like, my dad and I didn't always have the best relationship. That this was a journey, but I also wanted young women, young girls, women to know that reconciliation is possible, that they can heal, that they don't have to stay estranged from their father. Just because they didn't have a good relationship with their father as a child doesn't mean they can't rebuild that relationship as an adult. So I just wanted to have a real conversation in hopes of encouraging other young women. And I say young women a lot because that's the work that I do. I always work with young women, but not just young women, girls, young women, old, that rebuilding a relationship with your father is possible. It is necessary. And if there is anything that I could do, I know my dad, I'm signing him up, but he all right. He gonna come on this journey with me. But if there's anything that we can do to help facilitate that, again, my heart is always to serve and to help others. So I just hope that my story will help you, and that I could be a service to you and help you to facilitate that relationship, to help you walk in life a little lighter. um, and then also just allow your father the opportunity to maybe be that father to your kids that he wasn't to you. I don't have any children, but I have, what, 14, 15 nieces and nephews. There's a lot of them. But I just watched my dad show up for them in the way that he didn't show up for us. And even seeing my father show up for my nieces and nephews, his grandchildren, is also healing for me as well.
I would just like to say to fathers, have some consideration before you decide to father kids. If you don't know how to be a father, learn how to be a father before you father kids. Even as my daughters sit here with me today, if we're not there in their lives, being the first man in their lives is very important for their well-being, for their success in life. So it's important that we show up for them. I'm so grateful that my daughter is able to be open and honest about her father. And I'm just grateful that God has given me another opportunity to be here for them. And I would just say to the fathers out there, if you messed up, be honest about it. Own it. And make the change that you need to make in their lives. By the grace of God, I'm here. And God has done a work in my life, and He's still doing a work in my life. I've always wanted to be there for my kids, but I just couldn't show up in the way that I needed to show up. But I'm here today, and I thank God for this opportunity. And it's important, again, fathers, that you be there